Hey YouTube, today I'm going to share with you my best tips to enhance your improvisation. Whether you're a beginner, a seasoned guitarist, or even if you play another instrument, I hope that these tips will help you like it's helped all my students over the years. Tip number 1, space. You don't just want to go all in 100 miles an hour, as this tends to make the audience switch off and lose interest. Instead, put some space in between your playing. Imagine this almost like standing in front of a room full of people and presenting a speech or a presentation. You wouldn't just talk and talk and talk at your audience, because the point you're trying to make will get lost in all the information you're throwing out at them, and this gets lost and then the audience gets switched off and then you lose what you're saying and you lose track of what you're doing, and it just gets a bit boring if everyone switches off. You get my point. So try to put some space in your playing. You could think of it as musical sentences or phrases. Tip number 2. Rhythm. Mozart said that it's not the notes that make the music, but the silence in between. You could think of this as musical sentences again, and putting those gaps in between your phrases, but I think he means it more deeply in a kind of phrasing sense. So changing a rhythm, making one note shorter, one note longer, putting a rest here or there, will suddenly change your 4-note lick, for example, into something very different every time. So change up your rhythm, make everything different, and don't do the same thing. Tip number 3, do the same thing. Yes, I know what I just said, but I don't mean it in exactly that way. What I mean is, you can kind of create or repeat musical phrases that create a kind of hook to your listener, to your audience, and that creates a kind of familiarity with them. This is really used in music all the time. One of the best examples I can think of is the Sweet Child of Mine, Guns N' Roses. The bit that goes, you know, all that jazz. I mean, that is iconic, and it sticks in your head, and you can sing that melody. You hear it and you just go off on one because you've remembered it, because it's hooked you. And they use it in pop all the time as well. A good example would be Taylor Swift Trouble. You know the bit with the goat. And also that bit from another good guitar example would be Dakota, Stereophonics, when they go the That's a very catchy, repetitive lick. Now you might be arguing with me right now and saying, well, they're not improvisations. Well, at one point they were. At one point Slash had to improvise and create something melodic and turn it into a song. If you really want to get into it, you could think that any music, any original music, is always improvised at first, because that's where creativity comes from. And you've got to learn how to do that as well. That's why you're here, right? So you can actually take this idea further and take it to the next level with more intricate playing. The examples I showed you were quite simple, but if we take this lick, for example, or just take this bend, for example, by adding some more notes, making them different each time, but keeping that bend, the familiarity of the lick becomes apparent, and it's easy to digest by the audience. So something like this, maybe. Something like that, maybe. Alright, tip number 4. Make your phrases different lengths. What I mean is, well, we could use the talking analogy again, because you wouldn't have all your sentences with the same amount of words, because that sounds crap. You get my point? Maybe you want to do a nice long sentence where you're trying to explain something intricate, but then after that maybe do a short succinct sentence to drive that point home. I'll try and show you musically now. Right, let's try a long sentence first. hopefully you got my point there with the different phrasing, different lengths. They weren't all just long and short. I had some medium ones in there as well. Finally, tip number 5. Don't be scared of doing simple phrases. Now you could widen this a bit by taking all the scales and arpeggios you know, but just taking one and trying to milk that for as much as possible, for as long as possible, and you'll be surprised at how much you can get out of it. But to take this even further, to really zoom in on this, you will be surprised at how much you can get out of a 1, 2 or 3 note phrase. Okay? As musicians, we have such a plethora of things in our arsenal that we can do to 3 notes to make the improvisation infinite. And I've actually got a video on this. If you want to go check it out, it dives into tip number 5 in great detail. It's called Infinite Improv. Go check that out on my channel, and don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.